guys, Joe Miles here with Osseo Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail.
All right, guys, welcome back. Mission Whitetail podcast. Got our good buddy Adam Hayes. He's been on a bunch. I think he just needs to become a co-host of the Mission Whitetail podcast because he does a good job and he's such a wealth of knowledge. Mr. Hayes, how's it going, buddy?
Going good, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Let's do a quick kind of season update with what you got cooking, what you're working on right now, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast.
So right now I'm waiting on a big bear to show up in Alberta.
Ooh.
Bear season's open and they actually had a really light winter. You know, they normally have got 3 or 4 foot of snow by the, end of March, early April, and, they had less than a foot. So they were able to get baits in early. Areas that are normally flooded, with the spring thaw are pretty dry. So Clay got in running baits early and she kind of got me on standby because, with the really big old boars, your best chance to get them is right when they come out of hibernation, and they'll get on a bait and stay on that for, 10 days to 2 weeks. And then they're off looking for sows. So kind of on standby for that, waiting for a good bear to show up on camera, and then doing a bunch of work here on my home farm on food plots. I tore out a bunch of dead trees and brush, planting some evergreens, trying to build some screens around the food plots to make it a little more secluded.
Yeah.
Get ready to plant some, get some CRP grasses in the ground, and we got the clovers and the alfalfa's established. So it's just a matter of the cover, and then obviously getting some soybeans in the ground. So yeah, just kind of trying to get the mousetrap ready, everything you can do right now for this fall.
What about your bow? You all dialed there? Any changes this year? Or are you sticking with the with what you did last year?
No changes really, other than we're shooting the brand new Alpha from Hoyt this year, which I'm really happy with. Got it dialed in and ready to go for bear season. So I was actually shooting the aluminum bow last year, so I did not go with the RX8 this year. I really liked what they did with the Alpha. They kind of shortened up and widened the stance of the limbs and made the draw cycle a lot smoother on that bow. So really happy with the way that thing's shooting. So I'm excited to get that thing broke in.
Yeah, I shot it a couple weeks ago, and Hoyt's known for their draw cycle, and the Alpha, to me, I really like the draw cycle of that bow. And then what we found is, man, that aluminum Hoyt is quieter than the carbon, which is counterproductive in a lot of guys' minds. Is you think, oh man, carbon, that's going to be dead silent, but it had a little snap to it, and that aluminum bow to me seemed to be a lot quieter. But the Hoyt definitely, man, the draw cycle on that thing was nice.
Yeah, I agree 100% on the quietness. I'm not sure exactly why it is, other than maybe, with the little bit heavier, aluminum compared to that carbon riser, maybe absorbs more. Not sure, really what it is, but it's definitely the quietest and the smoothest bow from Hoyt that I've shot.
Yeah, I agree. What was the one last year? The Venom. That's where was that it? The Venom. That's the one where I saw that the Hoyt, the aluminum ones were quieter. And we did some stuff with that last year, but a darn good bow. So yeah, I'm excited to see what all you knock down with it this year.
Me too, man.
Yeah. Well, let's get Well, that's a darn good question. I'm actually, this podcast that we're doing is not going to, let's see, it's gonna drop on the 15th of May, so it's a couple weeks away. But and I will be home or in the air coming home from Botswana on the 15th. So I'm headed to Africa Monday,
Oh,
and yeah, I am taking my V3X Matthews, and I'm taking that new Prime. I've gotten that new Prime kind of dialed in, been working on it all week, and um, really like the draw cycle of that bow too. So that's what I'm gonna shoot over there. See how they do. Got some new broadheads from G5 to test out, the new T2 and the Mega Meat, and then I'm gonna take some iron wheel fixed blades to maybe try and shoot something big like an eland or a buffalo or something. So
what are you doing? Shooting one left-handed and one right-handed, so you're double barreled?
no, you know that I'm a paranoid son of a gun. So I got my bow from last year that I've shot a whole lot, and I'm like, I ain't taking a new unproven weapon into
Mhm.
battle without having my backup there. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna shoot the Prime, but boy, if it gives me any little bit of grief, I'll sell that to a native.
Nothing wrong with having a backup, Bo,
No, sir. No, not
especially
being that
that
far.
far from home.
Yeah. There are not many bow shops in the Kalahari. I mean, I guess I could get one of the Bushmen. I could borrow one of his stick bows. I don't know how good I would do with that though.
You can't drive down the road to the Botswana bow shop.
No, no, you can't. That's not happening. Oh, that's funny. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of today's podcast. And I don't think this is going to be a super long podcast, but who knows? It may end up being longer than I think. But you and I were talking in the, or I was in my truck Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever. Maybe it's yesterday or day before. And we were just talking about stuff, catching up, and we talked about doing another podcast. And you said, "Man, I got something I really think would be valuable to guys," and we kind of walked through it. And I agree with you. I'm not a super bed hunting guy. I mean, I like to kind of know where they're bedded, but I in the rut, I like the funnels. In the early season or late season, I like to be close to the food and just kind of knowing how they're getting to the food. But you've always, I guess you and Andre both have been, big time bed guys, and that's definitely a proven tactic. But walk everybody through what you and I were talking about on the mineral and finding the bedding areas now and setting the trap for later in the year. Like you could be doing that right now in April, May, in the first part of May.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say that I'm as big of a bedding area hunter as Andre is. I mean, I think most of what he does revolves around hunting in bedding areas, and it's more of a last resort for me most of the time. Um, but knowing where big buck beds is such a important piece to the puzzle. I mean, possibly one of the most important pieces to the puzzle. And right now with things greening up really quick, we got a really short window, if you haven't missed it, to be able to get in the woods and find these bedding areas. And, I've had a lot of people ask me, because I've talked about it a lot over the years, when you're looking for a bedding area, what are you looking for? And when we're talking about early season, whether it's late September, early to mid October, if you think about what a big deer is doing that time of the year, man, he's bedding, he's feeding, he's drinking, and he's just going back and forth from A to B. But that time of the year, they're doing a lot of rubbing, obviously, after they've shed their velvet. And where are they going to be doing that? They're going to be doing that where they spend most of their time, which is in their bedding areas. So if you really want to know where he's going to be, early season this year, where was the early season last year? Get in the woods, start looking at those, those thickets, the bedding areas, the ridge tops, places where, a big buck's going to bed, and look for those concentrations of rubs, especially bigger ones, because they're spending, all their time, most of their time in the woods around the bedding areas making rubs. So if you get in there before everything's green up, now's the time to really hone in and find those areas, those bedding areas. And, when you know where he's bedding, you know where he's going to be coming from in the evenings, you know where he's going to in the mornings. And right now is a great time not only to find those bedding areas, but to establish mineral sites in those areas. And for one, I've had my best luck with minerals when you establish them on a buck's existing travel pattern, as opposed to putting it out somewhere and hoping that he finds it. You want to get it on his travel pattern. And obviously this is a great time of the year for bucks to be hitting mineral. But the whole key to this strategy is getting those minerals in tight to the bedding areas right now. So they have, basically all spring, summer, early fall to get used to using them, and setting them up somewhere where you're actually going to hunt, where you can hunt. You want a bedding area tree stand that you can get hung right now, well ahead of season. You don't have to worry about busting them out of their bedding areas. You're going to hang that stand close by this, the sign you're looking for. You're going to hang it close by these mineral sites. And basically, you're setting that trap right now so that when that buck comes through that area and hits that site, you're going to be in a stand in bow range and can shoot him. And the whole, theory behind this, that I've used this a couple times on some of my best bucks that I've killed. So come end of September, October, well, let me step back. Late summer.
Yep.
Been watching these big deer all summer in the beans feeding. They've been consistent, showing up in the bachelor groups. You sometimes set your watch to these deer just showing up consistently all summer in these beans. And then right before season opens, it never fails. Guys start talking about these bucks vanishing. Where did they go? They've been on the summer pattern all year, and you guys are watching them. They're hanging stands on the edge of the bean fields, thinking it's going to be a slam dunk early season. And then they just vanish, once they shed their velvet, or maybe once those beans turn, brown, and they're not really interested in hitting them hard like they have all summer on the green leaves. So when these bucks vanish, where do they go? Well, they're going back to their core areas. They're going back to these bedding areas that you can find right now, and we're going to try to set up to kill them. So he's been on a summer pattern all summer long. You've watched him. He sheds his velvet. Early September, he vanishes. How are you going to know where he goes? Well, I've seen this firsthand when these bucks vanish and they go back to their core areas. The first thing they do is visit these mineral sites. And I know minerals aren't a real big draw that time of the year because their antlers are obviously done growing.
Right.
They got food everywhere, corn, soybeans, acorns, what have you. But they do check these mineral sites as soon as they come back to their core area. Now, whether it's, to hit mineral, whether it's to check and see, if any of the local does are hitting it, more of a scent thing, if he's got competition in his area. But that's one of the first things they check when they get back there. So if you got your mineral site established now right next to that bedding area, you've got a stand pre-hung to hunt it, and your buck ends up, traveling a half mile, 2 miles away in the summer on a different summer pattern. And then as soon as he makes that move, when they get reclusive, they shed their velvet, they head back to that, security area. You're all set. The mouse trap is ready to go. And as soon as he comes back, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to hit that mineral. It's great to have a cell camera in there so you don't have to disturb it. I mean, it's not that big of a deal right now, but obviously August, probably you'd want to get a cell camera in there. So exactly when he comes back in, exactly when he's there, when you need to dive in and kill him. And I've killed a couple of my best bucks with that tactic. And right now, like I said, right now is a crucial time. We got a really short window left to be able to get in the woods and find those areas, get those minerals established, get them used to using it. And the main thing is get those stands pre-hung, because that's not something that you want to do say August, early September, because something else you need to think about that time of the year. Like I said, these bucks are just going from bedding to food back and forth. That's all they're doing besides rubbing. And they might only be moving, 100, 200 yards from bedding to feeding. So you start talking about that October lull and why it's so tough to hunt and kill a big deer that time of the year is because they're doing everything in such a small area.
Yeah.
They're very killable because they're very consistent, doing the same thing every day, but trying to get in there in that tight little area that they're spending 90% of their time in and going in and hanging a stand, you're taking a big chance on tipping that buck off as to what's going on. So you're way ahead of the game if you can get in there now and get that stand pre-hung. I mean, that's probably the one stand you want to make sure that you get pre-hung this time of the year because it's so difficult to do it, right before season or early season. But Andre's made a career out of going into a buck's bedding area and bumping him out of there and hanging a stand and killing him, the next day or 2 days later. But we'll leave that to the bedding area expert.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting tactic. I have not done that just because it's like you say, it's to me, that's a super aggressive tactic, right? It all makes sense, right? You're going in March, April, you're finding the thicket with the biggest rubs in it, and you're probably able to find even some old beds in there. I mean,
Or even some sheds,
yeah, or even some sheds. That's where his home is once he gets rid of his velvet. You're not going to hunt in there September 1st because he ain't going to be there. And then so you have your mental set up, you have the stand set up to where you can shoot. I'm assuming to the mineral or to the trails coming out of that thicket, and it's tight, right? It's right on the edge of the thicket, if not in the edge of the thicket. The point being, they're not moving a whole lot that time of year in daylight. But if you have the trap set, you have the camera in there, you get the intel that he is walking up out of there right at dark, then bam, you've got an opportunity for a slam dunk.
Yeah, and somebody like Andre that's super aggressive, might jump into that stand as soon as that buck shows up. And it depends, when he shows up. If it's, early September, late September, when season opens, I'm the kind of guy that's going to try to kill a big deer like that in the evenings 2 or 3 times and kind of, I don't want to say save that, but maybe use it as a last resort.
Yep.
Because I think, once you dive in there, chances are he's going to know. If you don't get him killed, he's going to know you were in there. So I want to try to get him killed in the evenings a few times before I'll dive in there. But I mean, if a big deer is making a mistake in daylight and he's walking by your mineral site, hour, 2 hours after daylight, it's going to be tough not to dive in there. When they're making a mistake in daylight, you got to get aggressive and kill them. One thing that I will say that I've figured out over the years following the moon is that if I'm going to try to kill a big buck on a morning hunt, I want to wait until I've got a good red moon in the morning, which what I mean by that is going to have your overhead or underfoot moon peaking, 1, 2, maybe even 3 hours after daylight.
Yep.
It's getting daylight at 7 o'clock. I want that overhead or underfoot moon peaking at 8, 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock. Seems like those are your best chances I've seen to catch a big buck like that coming in back into his bed just a little late, because early season, it's tough to beat him into his bed unless you're in there in the middle of the night, because like I said, they're just bedding and feeding and he's normally going to be in there before daylight. But
Yeah.
I have seen firsthand a big deer coming back to bed just a little bit later on those mornings, because that overhead or underfoot moon is normally when the peak activity is going to occur. And if it's occurring after daylight, I've seen where those are the mornings they come back a little bit later. So I want
Well,
to try
it's
line up
it's
the mornings
it's
with that.
yeah, it's funny you say that because the tracks buck, from Kansas, I went out there in early October, the 10th, somewhere around the early to middle of October, to hang one additional stand for a north wind and to turn on my text camera. I went all the way out there just to do that, with the plan being to come back in Halloween. Now you remember that property, and where that deer was living was on the complete opposite side of where we were hunting him. He was over the road, up by that little white barn on the other side in that old lady's grown-up cattle pasture, a little 5-6 acre piece. That was his core area. And I had gotten 0 pictures of him up on the hill near the alfalfa where that scrape was. Remember where the scrape was, out in the middle of basically nowhere. You know, I had the cameras up there, got no early season pictures of him whatsoever. We knew that he had lived through the season, and my plan was to hunt him down there in the rut. I flew all the way out there, let's call it mid-October, got everything prepped and ready for the rut, cut the camera on, flew back, and when I landed, I had a daylight picture of him coming through that draw in the morning with an overhead moon going back into the thicket.
Yep.
I landed on Friday, looked at the weather, and it was going to be 3 days of north wind cold front, which is the exact stand site I just set up. And it was like a 15-degree colder than normal, middle of October, overhead moon in the mornings, underfoot in the evenings. And I told Natalie, I said, I'm flying back in the morning. And that afternoon, I got a right at dark picture of him coming out of that, because I was only 75 yards away from his bed. And sure enough, first afternoon in, he came, that temperature dropped, underfoot moon, prime time, heard the cattle fence pot where he jumped over it. I heard it go bing. I was like, oh boy, here comes a deer. And up through that draw he came.
Yeah.
So just, that was not on purpose. I wasn't using your tactic that you just walked through, right? But it is a prime example of that tactic working in early to mid-October, because I was right in the bedroom. The moon was right. There was mineral up in there, and it was the early, quote unquote, early season before the rut got going.
Yeah. I mean, they're so predictable that time of the year, because like I said, they're doing the exact same thing every day. They're doing it in a very tight area. And you had the perfect storm. You had early season, it was guard was down, you had a good moon, you had a big drop in temperature. Anytime you get the good wind, the good moon, good weather pattern all in the same night, that's a perfect storm for killing those big deer. And you were tucked in close to his bedding area, and he was probably doing the exact same thing just about every night, or he had just kind of come off his summer pattern. Maybe the beans finally turned, maybe the cornfield he was laying in came down, but he
Yep.
just showed back up, and that was, you were right on top of him. And
Right on top of him. That's exactly, and it
done.
wasn't on purpose, but it just goes back to, to that tactic you're talking about, is it because how many people do we talk to that the October lull kicks everybody's butt? And like if Bobby was on this podcast right now, he'd be telling both of us that we're idiots. We need to wait until November 1st before we even start hunting. But not every tactic works for everybody, and a lot of people do it a different way, and a lot of people's walls show that their tactics work. So lots of ways to skin the cat. But yeah, that's good, man. That's providing value for everybody that struggles with the October lull, and a workaround, if you will.
Yeah, I think the reason most guys don't have luck during the October lull is maybe they really don't understand it, or maybe they haven't done this early season stuff I'm talking about to be prepared for it, 6 months in advance. But like I said, that time of the year, October, all they're doing, bedding, feeding, going from A to B. They're doing the exact same thing every day. very consistently, very predictable. They're just doing it in such a small area that, you're probably going to get one chance to dive in there and get it done. So anything you can get prepared ahead of time is going to put you way ahead of the game. And, trying to go into the woods that time of the year and look for those rubs or look for those bedding areas. I mean, one time through there, he's going to be on you and know what's going on. So it's just one of those things where if you can go in there and find it right now and get it set up months in advance, man, it can be a deadly, deadly mousetrap for a big deer. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then having the camera to verify it. I mean, you get it
Yeah,
all set
exactly.
up, and you got
Yeah.
the camera and you got everything set up, and then voila, there he is. Well, you're ready to go.
Yeah. And having that mineral in there all these months in advance, I mean, he's going to know it's there. He's going to know it's there. He's going to be used to it. He's going to have visited it, whether it's right now or a couple months from now or midsummer. I mean, he's going to have 6 to 7 months to get used to it being there, finding it, knowing it's there. And, once he comes back into that area, he's going to check it. He's going to come through there. And if
And,
you're set up and ready to take advantage of it, and when he shows up by having a camera in there to give you that valuable real-time intel, I mean, it's a deadly tactic.
and another thing with that mineral is it creates trails, right? It manipulates the trail system. So you've got a big mineral site, and those does and younger bucks are going to and from, to and from, to and from. That buck will use that trail, because it's a known deer trail that's real comfortable with deer walking down it. So that mineral you can manipulate the trail system. If you've got a stand site or a tree that you've got to be in, you can manipulate the trail system somewhat, especially if you put it between that bedding and where he's going to go feed in October.
Yeah.
So,
And it's
so that,
pretty critical to also think about your entrance into that, how you're going to be able to get in there without going through any food sources, spooking them in the morning, how you're going to be able to get into that bedding area quiet. I love being able to like slip in through the back door for those morning hunts where he's feeding over here, he's bedding here, and you can come in from the back door and he has no idea, that you've slid in there.
and that's something that you can figure out now. You can take
Yeah.
your time in there and go, okay, you might have to cut a little bit. You might have to open up a ditch. If you're able to sneak through a ditch or a little creek, you can open that up some now. So yeah, all that, and take your time and figure out your access and make it bulletproof.
Yeah. Yep. Now's the time to get that done.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to shift a little bit here. I got a message this morning from a buddy on Facebook, and the question was, what are some mistakes that we made in we're in 2024 and 2023 in last year's season that you want to correct this year? And I'll go first on this because we just talked about access. Yeah, I'll do one. I'm sure there were multiple mistakes that I made throughout the season, but one that really sticks out that I'm going to correct. And I kind of preach this a lot is making sure you turn over every stone and not leaving anything to chance. And in Kentucky, when we got that funnel all set up and ready to go, I was standing up in my tree and I said, okay, the access here is going to be to come up the very edge of that river from the highway. And I can walk right up the edge of that river and pop right up the bank into the stand. And I looked at it on the map and it looked perfect. So I was like, all right, yeah, access dialed, move on, next subject. Well, the mistake I made was not walking that out. I should have actually climbed down this was in March, right? What we were just talking about. Should have climbed down out of the stand once we got everything set up. And I should have walked my access all the way out to the highway to see, how deep the river was, what the conditions were like. Was there any bedding down in there by the river? That's an out of the way place with a lot of thick stuff in there. And I didn't do that. I just assumed, which I hate to do, that it was going to be bulletproof access. And so we head out there to hunt that 10 point, get parked, walk down the highway, jump off into the river. And we had gotten 5 inches of rain in 2 days. And the river was about outside of its banks. and it was forcing us to have to walk through some thickets, and we started jumping deer.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not going to work. So we turned around, walked back to the highway, went back up to the truck, and then our access was not ideal. I mean, we had to get to that tree. So what we did is we picked the absolute shortest distance from the truck to the tree that was open, like not walking through thicket. And then when we got close to the tree, we walked straight down a shooting lane into the tree. It ended up working, but if I could go back and do it again, I would have had a little canoe or a little aluminum boat or something on standby. So I could have just, it wasn't far, we're talking 300 yards, but I could have just dropped that little boat on the other side of the highway and gone through the culvert because it was giant, and just paddled or just let the current take me right down to the stand, or figured out a better way to get straight in there to it. So that
Yeah.
was a mistake that I made. It didn't cost me the deer, but it sure could have, and I thought it had, especially when we started jumping deer in that thicket, right by the river. So access, and again, going back to everything you can control, everything that you can see, do, and figure out, do it now, do it ahead of time, so you're not leaving anything to chance. That was my mistake. How
Yep.
about you?
My biggest mistake was not paying attention to my gut instincts. You know, you're talking about reading the sign and everything, kind of outside of yourself, with, you know, reading the sign, looking at the terrain. I'm talking about inside right here. Probably the most valuable tool we got, you know, using my brain and going with my gut instincts, and knowing that I should have been home in the Midwest here in Ohio or in Illinois last week of October, first week of November, when I knew things were going to start getting cranked up here, and it was going to be my best opportunity for a couple of the bucks I wanted to kill, which last few days of October, they were on camera, daylight, making mistakes. And where was I? I was up in Alberta, which, I mean, Alberta's a great spot. Clay's got a great place. He's got some giant deer up there. But I just, I've been living in the Midwest for, my whole life. I know when the best time is to be here.
Sure.
And I didn't listen to my gut instinct that I should have been home at that time, and was off, chasing deer in greener pastures. And yeah, I mean, enough said. I knew better. I knew better than to do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, what more can I say about that? I mean, I should have been here. I've been scouting year round in these areas. I know when deer are going to be moving, when they're going to be making mistakes, and the best week, 2 weeks to be around here or in Illinois is that window, end of October, early November. And I should have tried going up, a little bit later or a little bit earlier, and staying focused here at home when I knew I
Yeah.
needed to be here. So
So I'm taking it you will be in Ohio or Illinois around Halloween of this year, or Kansas.
yeah, if I was a bet man, I'd put some big money on that.
Yeah, my plan too. This year for me, uh, Ohio, Kansas, Kentucky. No Illinois, but yeah, Ohio, Kansas, Kentucky. That's what I'll be focused on. Hopefully things will work out in Kentucky early again. I mean, that little property's so good. If a good one gets in there, very killable. I've got to go back out there. I'll probably wait until June and go back out there and get a camera set up, turned on, and just check the stand that's already hung where it needs to be, and then walk that river and make sure I can get in and out of there
Stands are only as good as your ability to access and exit, undetected. So you know
without a doubt.
that.
Yeah, especially if it's kind of early, that 20th to 30th of October, where you can really booger them up pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
What else, man? You got anything else?
No, it's just it's gonna be I got a feeling it's gonna be a long wait, but it's gonna and again it's gonna be here before you know it. So I mean, you got to be prepared and just trying to do everything I can right now because it seems like you never have enough time to get all that stuff done. And it's those little things you can do right now that you don't have to do that are gonna make the biggest difference when it's actually too late to do them right before season. So trying to get all that stuff done right now. They're really important stuff. Tweaking this, tweaking that, you know, trying to set those perfect mouse traps. And I got a particular, deer here at home that I want to try to kill this year and just trying to figure out, little ways where I can make him feel a little bit more comfortable in the areas where I can kill him by adding some security cover. And I think it's really going to be all about early season for me. I think that's my best chance to kill a big one here at home. So, what can I do to not only maximize my opportunities early season, but what's gonna pull a big deer like that into my property early season,
Yeah.
what's he gonna be wanting that time of the year, they're going to be wanting those green soybeans, oaks, security cover. I mean, it just, a lot of different things, but I'm excited, man. I can't wait. This might be a great season. We'll see.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Now, if we both get drawn in Kansas, what are we going to rock, paper, scissors over the big one Seymour's got tied up for us? I mean, what's the plan there?
Yeah, we might have to get out the old rock, paper, scissors and see what happens.
Well, I actually supposed to close on a little farm out there Monday before I fly across the pond. So hopefully get that done. And then if I don't get drawn, which the chances of me getting drawn this year are not very good because it's been 3 or 4 years in a row. So I probably will not get drawn this year. But if I don't, I will be on that little farm, and it's good. It's got a major rut funnel where I think we counted it 4 or 5 different trails all come together at this creek, and then they come together right there because it's the only place that you can cross, and then they all fork off. So it'll be one of those just sit right there until something comes through there. So,
Good
but
deal. Well,
yeah,
so I won't have to take you down in rock, paper, scissors then.
yeah. Well, I think we need to do that anyway. Yeah, we should do it. But yeah, that'll be good, man. Hopefully, we're both out in Kansas at the same time. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's on the hit list for Africa?
Yeah, so Big Kudu, I'm going to a place in Botswana called Tholo Safaris. It's a big, open old Africa type place. Be hunting ground blind water holes and then doing some spot and stalk hunting as well. But Big Kudu, they're known for their really big kudu in this area, and then they've got a bunch of eland. So those would be the two that I'd really like to get. And then they've got wildebeest, Gims buck, impala, warthog. So any of that comes through there that's of good size. I'm not going to keep arrows in my quiver. Something big comes walking through there.
Be a target rich environment, huh?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've been talking with them a bunch lately. They seem pretty excited about it. So yeah, I'm ready to get over there. And plus, Botswana is just beautiful, man. They've got the Okavango Delta that's just north of us. If we get something killed in there early, get a couple of critters down, I'll probably go north and just go hang out in the Okavango. I mean, they've got thousands of elephants in there, big lion. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful part of Africa.
Well, you enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm going to. I'm going to enjoy the heck out of it.
Is Chop going?
Not on this one. He is hot and fit to be tied. He's got his exams going on right now, so he couldn't go on this one. But he went last year, and then we are gonna go down to Argentina later in the year and chase a red stag around. So he is going on that one. Yeah.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, something with some big antlers. I know that gets you fired up.
That's really the only thing I've ever had any interest in flying overseas to hunt would be a stag, big stag when they're roaring.
Yeah. So that's you need to do that when Algar Safari's down south. Man, that's in Patagonia. You just fly straight south, same time zone. They got just as big a stag there as they've got in New Zealand. So that's a heck of a fun hunt. A lot
Yeah.
of fun. And it's it's a March rut. So we got nothing going on here other than scouting. So you can get down there for 5 or 6 days and chase those rutting stag around in Patagonia. Yeah, it's nice.
Well, I might have to book a flight on Osseo One
Yeah,
for
oh
that.
yeah, we need to get Osseo one, that's for sure. Cool, man. Well, have a good weekend. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll be in touch soon, buddy.
Sounds good. Well, good luck on your trip and be safe and don't let any of them lions get you.
Thank you, buddy. I'll do my best. I don't have to outrun everybody. I just got to outrun one guy.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.